Hey there, Stampers. Welcome to day 4 of our Daisy Garden Lunch and Learn. I'm just updating my iPad here. There we go. Okay, I hope everybody is having a fabulous day. Okay, so let's recap what we've done so far this week. We started with this card on Monday, featuring the TaylorMade tag dies. Love those dies, and using it as just a subtle background, tone on tone. And then on Tuesday we created a fun background using the packaging technique. And yesterday we did a multicolor background, and today we're going to do kind of a similar version to this, except we're going to add a little bit of color. But we are going to cut it into strips. So it's going to be fun. And if you're a VIP member, if you're part of my VIP group, I shared a free tutorial this morning for those guys where we use this stamp set and add color in a different way. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. I've got my pieces here. So I am using Crumb Cake today. Got a standard size crumb cake, standard size card base in Crumb Cake, 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4 1/4. And then I've got a Crumb Cake layer that measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/4. And I will end up cutting this down a little bit, but we are going to stamp on it first. So I've gone ahead and I've got my stamp mounted on my Stamparatus. For any of our background stamps, I highly recommend the Stamparatus. And I'm going to position my cardstock in here. 8 days, Christine, 8 days. Can't come soon enough. Oh my gosh. Okay, it's a week from tomorrow. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm just positioning this so that none of the tops of my flowers get cut off. I'll just use my magnet to hold it in place, but make sure that my magnet isn't in the way when I go to make my impression here. Okay, that looks good. All right, now normally I would use Crumb Cake on here. However, many of you know that we are living in an Airbnb right now as we wait to take possession of our house next week. And so the supplies that I have on hand are limited. I don't have all of my ink colors, and Crumb Cake is not one that I brought. So the next closest color that I have is Cinnamon Cider. So I'm going to use Cinnamon Cider, and it'll work just fine. It's just going to give me a little bit of a darker impression. Okay, so you can see that I've got a stamp case underneath here. It just helps if the platform is level. So I'm just moving my ink pad around to make sure this is pretty consistently inked all the way around. Oh, looks like one spot there. Okay. So this is just one of the ways that you can add color to this image. So far I've only stamped it in different colors and haven't really colored it in. There's lots of different ways that you can add a variety of colors to this, so this is just one of the ways. I've got several other ideas. You could color it with Stampin' Blends, you could color it with our ink pads and stamp it with StazOn. You could do like a Poppin' Pastels, you could do finger daubers. So there's so many different ways. Okay, so there's still some areas here that are not. So I usually start with going back and seeing if I can apply more pressure before I'll add more ink. Okay, that looks better. All right, so there we've got our image. It looks beautiful just like that, but we're going to do something else to it. But while I've got my stamp out, I'm going to stamp the inside of my card. So I've got a 4 by 5 1/4 inch piece of white cardstock. And I'm just going to position this so that I can stamp in kind of the lower left corner. And I'll ink this up, just this one section. Thank you for sharing, Joy. For those of you who are not familiar, I do give away all of these cards. Actually, tomorrow I'm so behind on some of them, so I've got a whole bunch of cards to give away. So tomorrow I will be announcing the winners of those cards and the cards for this week. If you comment or participate in the conversation, whether it's live or the replay, you get an entry. And if you share the video, because I love to share what I do, so I appreciate that very much. And you get 5 entries if you do that. So if you haven't already, you can always go back and share those videos. There's still the opportunity to do that. Okay, so now I've got my envelope here, and I'm going to do the same thing, just ink up that corner. Oh, Denise, I'm glad you're enjoying these lunch and learns. They've been kind of fun. So now that we're 4 days in, do you guys prefer the lunch and learns for the week? Like, do you prefer them at lunchtime or do you prefer them in the mornings? Because normally I do my daily Facebook Lives in the mornings. You're so sweet, Denise. So I'm just wondering if the timing is better for you guys to have something over the lunch hour, or is it better for you guys to have something in the morning, or would you prefer for these to be done in the evening? That's also an option. Okay, so I just kind of set that aside for now. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I am going to bring in this piece. Actually, I'm going to bring in one that's mostly done. Okay, so this, I've gone ahead and I've stamped it with the cinnamon cider, and I've colored lots of it in. And to color it in, I've used our watercolor pencils. It's a combination of both assortment 1 and assortment 2. So the colors that I have here are Whisper White, Early Espresso, Cajun Craze, Crushed Curry, Daffodil Delight, Granny Apple Green, and Old Olive. So I purposely left a few of these flowers not colored in. I didn't want you guys to watch me color the whole thing in because it does take a bit of time. Okay, so we'll start with this floral image. What I did was I took the Crushed Curry and I colored the very center, not the whole thing, just a little bit of it. And then I'm going to take Cajun Craze and go around a little further out, and then some Early Espresso and go all the way around the edges. Okay, and then I'm just going to take my Crushed Curry and just kind of go all the way around. And then for the petals, what I did was I took some Daffodil Delight and I'm just coloring the yellow just on the tips of the flowers. And the great thing about this is a really kind of a subtle color, and because we've stamped it on crumb cake, I feel like you don't have to be too particular. It doesn't have to be fully colored in. It doesn't have to be in the lines. Like, I'm not being super careful. And then I'm going to take my white and color in the rest of the petals. So you can see I'm going really quickly. I'll bring it up closer so that you guys can have a closer look. And it looks so pretty. Okay, so now I'm going to go down and do this one. Some of these are going to be cut off, so you can see that I left kind of the bottom and up the sides because I know that some of those are going to be cut off. So I'm doing the tips in daffodil and then the rest in white. And then I'm going to add in some Old Olive here. I had to borrow my mom's pencil crayons because mine are packed, and I really wanted to do this technique with this stamp. And I don't have a sharpener, so some of them are really thin, or blunt, I guess I should say. So then I'm just adding a little bit of the Granny Apple to the top and just going over just to add a little bit of variation in the shades of green. Okay, so I'm going to leave it like that until I cut it down, and I may need to go in and color in some of these leaves that are not colored. But let me just bring it up a little closer for you to see. Isn't that pretty? I feel like it's a little bit more forgiving if you do it on crumb cake rather than white. I think it would be beautiful on white though as well. I just think that you'd have to be a little bit more careful. Okay, so now we're going to trim this down, and I am going to trim it down to 3 3/4 across. So right now it is 4 1/4. So I'm going to do 1/2 inch off both sides. Or sorry, 1/4 inch off both sides. Okay. And then I will cut off the bottom at some point. Actually, what is it? We're at 5 1/2 now. We're going to cut it to, we'll cut it at 5 inches for now. Some of them are going to get trimmed. Okay, and then I'm going to cut strips, just like I did yesterday. I'm going to do 1 inch. I'll do 7/8 of an inch, so I'm not doing them even. And then what have we got left? This is almost 2 inches. So we will do just shy of 1 inch. Okay. All right. Now what I'm going to do is I want to stagger these. So I want to be some a little higher than others. And I just realized that I think I did this wrong. Okay, let me think about this here for a minute. Okay, this guy's going to get cut off here because I don't want to cut the tops of my flowers off. Okay, so that's going to go like that. And then we will trim this one at the bottom. And I'm not measuring, I'm just kind of trimming off where I want to trim off. Okay, so this guy's still a little long. Let's trim this a little bit. And we will trim this off a little bit. You'll kind of get the idea of what it's going to look like in a minute here as I kind of piece it together. Okay, this guy we can trim off a little bit off the bottom. And then this one, we're going to go up higher. So we'll trim quite a bit off the bottom of this one. Okay, we're going to start with this, see what it looks like. I'll move these out of the way. I still want to do something to those pieces before I attach them to my card. Okay. So now I want to distress these a little bit. So I'm going to take my scissors and go around all 4 sides and just roughen them up a little bit. This just gives it a little bit of added texture, and I find that it works. It looks really good because it's done on the crumb cake. I don't know, crumb cake to me is a color where if you're doing vintagey kind of projects or projects that have a little bit of distressing, it's perfectly suited to those kinds of projects. So I'm just going to go all the way around the edges. So if you guys missed it, I shared a layout I did using this stamp set earlier today on my blog, so you can check that out. It's part of the Scrapbooking Global blog hop that I participated in, and it's a fun layout. So this stamp is not just for card making, it's great for scrapbooking as well. And then I'm going to share something else with you guys as well, because you guys know that right now we've got a fabulous starter kit promotion on. And so I put together a little sampling of a starter kit. I included things that if I wasn't a demonstrator right now or didn't own these products, these are kind of some of my favorite things right now that I would include as part of a starter kit. if I were to become a demonstrator. So I'm going to share that with you. And I got it as close to the allocated amount as I possibly could. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with you guys. Okay, so this is going to go in the center, or center-ish, of our crumb cake card base. So I'm just going to position this. I'm not going to push down too hard right now because I want to make sure that I have room for all my layers. So that looks pretty good. Okay. And I'm leaving a space in between them. So unlike yesterday where I butted the strips right up against each other, I am leaving a little bit of a space. Oh, we've got to color in our leftover images here. I have to remember to go back and do that. Okay, so this one is pretty closely lined up at the bottom. So I'm just going to trim this a little bit more and then roughen this up. Just so that I don't want any of the tops or the bottoms to be even. I want them to be staggered. Okay, and then the last one. Okay, that worked out pretty well. Okay, that looks good. All right. So now I just need to go back in and color some of these leaves. So that guy needs a little bit of green, but then some granny apple. And then I'm going to leave the tips white. So again, I'm not being super careful. I'm not coloring necessarily all the way to the edges. I can go back in and add in some of the lighter, brighter green to give some interest to the leaves. Is everybody staying warm? In Alberta here it is, well, at least in Edmonton. I haven't been out yet, but my husband said it's only a couple degrees out there. Okay. Getting close to the end here. I think I'm wobbling the table. I apologize if the camera is wobbling. Okay. I think we're done. Okay, so let me bring that a little bit closer. So that is our card front. Shirley says she's not leaving until it's 10 degrees. It is supposed to be nice next week, although it is supposed to be rainy, but it is supposed to be nice. Okay, so now we need a greeting. So I've got a 1-inch strip of some white cardstock, and I am using the Color and Contour stamp set. I'm going to use the greeting that says "Here for You Now." So this is a set that I've kind of incorporated with this background stamp all week long. I think they pair, the greetings pair really well with this stamp set, and the dies definitely do as well. And it's one of my favorite new stamp sets. Okay, so I'm going to stamp this in the middle of the white, trying to make sure it's straight. And I did not bring my stamp cleaner over, so I'm just going to peel this off because I need this block for another, I'll just stick it on there, for another stamp that we're going to stamp on the inside. And I'm going to use the "End in Better Days" for the inside. I'll move that out of the way. So I've got the inside that I stamped the background on, just kind of in the lower left corner, and I'm going to stamp this in the center. I love this combination of fonts so much. Okay, cover that, get that out of the way. This we're going to trim down. I'm just going to use my scissors and just trim it straight. Thank you, Louise. Okay, we'll add this to the inside first, and then I'm going to bring in some of our new Baker's Twine Essentials pack, because inside there is a crumb cake Baker's Twine. If you guys follow me often, you know that I'm a Baker's Twine lover. I absolutely love Baker's Twine. There's so many things that you can do with it, and I love that it doesn't add a ton of bulk. So I've got, oh, I don't know, maybe a 12-inch strip. It might be a little bit longer than 12 inches. And I'm going to separate the fibers. So I'm just kind of pulling them apart. And sometimes this can get a little bit finicky. I probably should have done it beforehand. So this Baker's Twine pack comes with all of these colors. So you get vanilla white, crumb cake black, and that is one of the grays. I can't remember. It looks like gray granite, but it might be smoky slate. Okay. So you guys are just gonna have to watch me do this here. So I'm basically just kind of pulling a few of the fibers down. Sometimes you can separate them like this, but I find you'll get knots because they start to twist. And I bet this is gonna give me a bit of a problem today just because I'm doing it on camera. And it is a longer piece. It is easier if it's a shorter piece. We might have to just cut it shorter. For what I'm gonna do, it doesn't really matter. Okay, we're gonna snip this off. Okay, so I want them all in individual threads. And it really doesn't matter if they break. Okay, so I'll separate this. And then we'll try to go back to this and see what we can do. There we go. And I think there's just a couple left here. Okay, separate that. Okay, so now I've got all of these kind of random fibers. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put some adhesive. I'm going to take this, roll it up into a ball, and just pull it apart. Some of you are probably freaking out about that. Like, it just looks like a big messy ball, and that's the look that I'm going for. I'm going to put it right here, and then I'm going to add some dimensionals to the back. I know for some people doing things like this, it just causes them a lot of stress. But I think it just works for this card because it's just a little bit more rustic. Okay, and then you can kind of play around with these and spread them out a little bit or leave them as is. And there is our card and our matching envelope. Isn't that beautiful? And it's so very different from the other cards that we've created so far this week. So let me bring them all back in so that you guys can have a look. So this was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I've got one more to share with you tomorrow, but before we sign off for today, I want to share what I would include in the starter kit if I wanted to take advantage of this fabulous opportunity right now. So, of course, you know that it has to include the Daisy Garden because I'm loving this stamp set right now. So this is what I would include. Right now, you can purchase the starter kit for $135. You don't pay shipping and you don't pay GST. But the thing is, you get to include $206 worth of product, okay? So I would also include the color and contour bundle, which includes this stamp set and these dies that you've seen me use many, many times since they were released. So I'd include those. I would include the Stamparatus, because I am loving, since moving into this Airbnb and not having all my blocks and just not having a ton of space, and just, I don't know, I've used the Stamparatus so much more than I have in the past. I would include that, and I would include this beautiful bark embossing folder. So I haven't used this week, but I have been using it quite a bit on some other projects, and it gives you the most beautiful background, nice textured bark looking background. So I would include that. Of course, I would include the Baker's Twine Essentials pack, and I would include the Genial Gems, because those are my new favorite embellishments right now. So all of this product. So if I were to purchase all of this product with shipping and tax here in Alberta, it would cost me $205.75. Okay. And right now you can include $206 in your starter kit and only pay $135. So right now, if you chose to become a demonstrator and included all of these items in your starter kit, you would pay $135. No shipping, no GST. That is a fabulous deal for $237.64 worth of product, right? So it's a no-brainer. And you get to enjoy the discount with no commitment or requirement to do anything until the end of October at least. So if that's something that you're interested in, or if you have any questions about anything, please feel free to reach out. I will post a link to where you can purchase the starter kit or join Stampin' Up! In the description above once this video goes live. And like I said, I would love to have you join my Canadian team. We've got team members Canada-wide, and we meet once a month. We have some fun training. We stamp together. We do some recognition. It's just lots of fun, and there's never any pressure. Many of our team members joined just because they love to stamp and they just want their product at a discount, and that's completely fine. All right, so thanks so much for watching. I will see you guys again tomorrow at noon Mountain Time for our final project featuring the Daisy Garden stamp set. Take care. Bye, guys.